Hola, hola, buenas tardes amigos y amigas, soy Sebastián Izquierdo, esto es Capitalismo Revolucionario. Hoy día vamos a hablar cortita, tengo un par de temitas. Dejé de hacer los podcasts diarios porque la verdad es que nadie está enganchando mucho. Igual para mí era entretenido hacerlos, pero la idea es que también haya feedback, que aprenda, que dejen temas, que dejen preguntas, que manden noticias. No se dio nomás, no se pudo. Además de eso, estuve viendo la horda de fanáticos de Henry Boyd que me estaban atacando por el video en el que yo, bueno, lo trato bastante mal al hombre. Creo que se entienda que yo no tengo nada en contra de las ideas de Henry Boyd, así la gran mayoría de las ideas de Henry Boyd no me molestan. Yo le ofrecí un debate sobre el aborto, creo que ese es un tema en el que él está profundamente equivocado. Pero él se negó a realizarlo, así que nada, pues. No me digan a mí que no tengo argumentos y que soy un perdedor, no sé qué, cuántas cosas ignorantes me pusieron, si es que acaso es su gran líder amado el que se niega a un debate de ideas. El que rechaza a un debate de ideas es su líder, no yo. Otra cosa es que, a ver, con respecto a mi video contra la Fundación para el Progreso, a ver, creo que quede algo claro, yo no creo que la Fundación para el Progreso haga algo malo. Yo creo que es un desperdicio de recursos, creo que hace poco. Con la enorme cantidad de recursos que tienen, creo que hacen poco. No estoy diciendo que hagan algo malo. También creo que tienen algunos profesores, por el afán de tener gente así como muy intelectual, tienen algunos profesores ahí que son, no algunos, bastantes profesores que son en verdad poco comprometidos con lo que es el verdadero liberalismo, más cercanos a lo que es la socialdemocracia y son bastante pomo y metidos en el rollo social justice warriors, medio feministas, toda esa weá. ¿Vale? Pero creo que ustedes, por lo menos yo les pido a los que me siguen que por favor asistan a todas las cosas que puedan, que vayan a todas las weas, que aprovechen los descuentos en los libros, que aprovechen el internet gratis, que aprovechen la biblioteca, que aprovechen todas las situaciones que se presenten en el FPP. Porque a pesar de que, claro, que si bien desvicia muchos recursos, tratemos de que sean menos aprovechando. Respecto al video de la flaca que se puso a gritarle machista, machista, machista a un weón en el Banco de Estado, hay gente que está diciendo que es un montaje, que es una performance, un experimento social o algo así. No hay evidencias de eso, nadie me ha mostrado, no, mira, fue tal grupo, fue tal organización que lo hizo, he preguntado por todas partes, he buscado en internet y no he podido encontrar evidencias de que la situación esta que sucedió en el Banco de Estado sea un montaje. Les voy a dejar ahora un clip para los que no lo hayan visto.
Ya, bañarte, negro culiado hediondo.
Ah, buena, ¿qué me decís negro culiado hediondo? Soy terrible balsa, buena, ¿qué te pasa? Y con las señoritas de hoy en día, bueno, después piden respeto, ya, pero si después piden respeto. No, ¿qué? La piden respeto, terrible balsa, bueno. Así nomás con las feminazis.
¿Cómo que feminazi, weón? Espérate, caballero, espérate. ¿Cómo que feminazi, weón?
Feminazi, ¿tú
¿Qué
acá?
feminazi? ¿Ah?
No, me estoy esperando hace rato también.
¿Cómo que feminazi? ¿Ah? ¿Hasta que no tengo cara de mina, culiao? ¿Ah? Dime, pues, weón. ¿Ah? No tengo cara de mina, culiao, para que sepa ahí. Soy bien mujercita para mis weas. Dime algo ahora, pues, weón. Dime algo ahora, weón. ¿De qué haces, pañalito, culiao? Hueones como vos, el mundo está como está. Por hueones como vos no podemos salir a la calle tranquila, culiao. Machista, culiao. Ándate a la mierda con tu prototipo de mierda. Ándate a la mierda con tu heteronorma de mierda, culiao. Machista de mierda. Hediondo de mierda. Hombre de mierda. Anda a bañarte en esto, culiao. Hediondo, vaya.
Y bueno, he estado traduciendo estos videos, no sé si han visto que he estado subtitulando varios videos de la Prager University, que es muy interesante el contenido que presentan. Espero que los vean y los compartan todos. En la manifestación de mañana frente a la Embajada de Cuba por el tema de los chicos del Mises Institute de Cuba que están en campos de trabajo desde el 2 de febrero, se canceló porque yo tengo temas legales que solucionar, pero que era a un asunto legal mañana. Por eso está cancelado el asunto. Así que lo dejamos. Vamos a organizarnos para otro día, pero definitivamente lo vamos a hacer. Estoy pensando qué día podemos hacerlo. Me gustaría sugerencias sobre qué día ustedes también pueden asistir. Ojalá que sea día de semana para que nos escuche la gente de la embajada. Y a una hora en la que estén. El día 22 de abril en Plaza Italia a las 4 de la tarde vamos a marchar como capitalismo revolucionario en otra marcha contra los impuestos. El lema esta vez es no más impuestos, pero el hashtag sigue siendo el mismo, impuesto es robo. Los esperamos a todos, ojalá que asistan, la misma cantidad o más que la vez anterior. Vamos a estar haciendo mucha difusión por medio de distintas páginas, así que esperamos que lleguen. Y los voy a dejar al final con un video de una trabajadora social que ha tenido serios problemas con el feminismo y que necesita entonces, o sea que tiene un testimonio que es bastante sobrecogedor. Así que las voy a dejar con eso para terminar este video. Esto ha sido Capitalismo Revolucionario y buenas tardes.
I'm going to take you back to 1969, when the first movement, it was called the Women's Liberation Movement in those days, actually came across from America, because the original meeting was in Washington at that time, and a group of leftist Marxist women had got together at this very beginning meeting. In essence, they wanted a movement of their own, and they turned on their leftist men, partners and boyfriends and everything else, and said, look, we are going to change the goalposts. We need our own movement. We want our own funding. And there is very little money in left-wing movements. So what we'll do is it will no longer be capitalism that's the problem and that we're going to fight to overcome. We're now going to move it to patriarchy. And I think that's a brilliant strategy. As a branding issue, how better could you get than half the other part of the human race is going to now pay you for your movement that's going to exclude them and create a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar industry over the last 40 years. The original point when I stood up in those great big collectives and pointed out to them that the movement that they created was actually nothing to do with women's needs. They brought to us a Trojan horse. It was called equality, and there needed to be changes made to make women equal in those days. The simple ones were that in my day, you couldn't have contraception from the doctor until you proved that you were getting married. The woman had to actually prove this to the doctor before she was allowed. So you know there was no possibility of abortion. Many, many women died of septicemias and infections. I heard this, the most chilling phrase to me, and I called it the planned destruction of the family, was that what was said is the new parenting, the new structure would be women and children. That would be the new movement. And men would be disenfranchised because marriage was no longer a safe place. So my figure, which ties up with yours, is of the first 100 women that came into my refuge, 62 were as violent and some more violent than the men they left. And the rest were innocent victims of their partner's violence. So as I could understand it, I had to look at women who were just like my mother, incapable of I suddenly recognized my mother threw the bomb and my father exploded. Once you realize that, and I realized it was both of them, we used to have a sticker that said, people are not for hitting, children are people too. And on the T-shirts of the kids, we would put that sticker, so when the mother lifted her hand, that sticker was there to remind her. I wrote the first book in the world on domestic violence. It was called Scream Quietly or the Neighbors Will Hear. That was Jeannie's husband said when he was beating her. And I remember she was telling me this, and I said, well, can I use that? It's a fantastic title. And I wrote the book, and I included all the letters. I'd never written a book, so I had all the letters I had and what was happening at that time. And at the end of it, I put a whole list of all the agencies who knew exactly what was going on, and they all queued up to sue me. But then the cat was out of the bag, though. They could no longer pretend this was not an issue because the press got behind it, and so did the public. My problem was they only wanted to hear about innocent victims of partners' violence. What enraged them and made me the enemy was I said, no, but it's not like that. It's not a gender issue. It has nothing to do with patriarchy. That's a whole made-up nonsense. It's actually fraud. Yeah. This is going to be perfect. It's a perfect issue for a feminist movement who say all men are violent. And it's a perfect funding issue because as long as you make sure that the women are told and everybody is brainwashed into thinking of women as victims, then you have an income and it will become jobs for the girls. And as women went into law, they began to change the law, as you know, completely illegal, much of what they've done. Because what they've done is to take a man's right to be innocent before he's proven guilty. That's been taken away. A man, no women, a man has to prove his innocence. And that is the most shocking thing, I think, that has happened in the last 40 years. All now a woman has to do is pick up the phone and he's finished. Because I used to call it orgasmic rage, because once she'd exploded and done the damage that she did to her partner or to her children, then came the calm. 10 o'clock in the morning, the kids went off with the play staff, who were usually virtually all men, with some women working with them. That's the first time the children knew good, kind, gentle men. And they're forbidden in refuges. The shelter movement will not allow men to work directly with children or even sometimes to come into the shelters that could brainwash women into this whole concept that they have to remain victims. And actually, they learn very quickly if they dare to try and take responsibility for their behavior, they will be in big trouble with the sisterhood. We shouldn't be sitting here having to go on yet again about what this evil empire is doing. It's doing it to men, women, and children. I want one day to make many of these women accountable. I want to actually charge them with fraud. I do. Hillary Clinton would be the first on my list. She is behind a huge amount of what's going on, and she wants to bring the Violence Against Women's Act global. Can you imagine the amount of money they can make?
Sorry, what was her name again?
Hillary Clinton. And then we have a woman called Harriet Harman. She produced a policy document. She's the Minister for Women, and she's in the Labour Party. And in the document it states that men aren't necessarily harmonious to marriage. And that became the policy document that is now in force. Talking about the laws, we've got a new law now coming in England. I don't know if you have it here. It's called the Cinderella Law. See, what they do, the feminists behind all this, the radical feminists, they spread the definition of domestic violence so wide. This new one's called neglect. Who's going to decide what neglect is? Social workers are going to decide. And this time they're saying that children can give evidence. Now, when did we last see that? It's coming. If we can't stop it, you'll get it. It'll go to America. And then children will give evidence against not their mothers, their fathers.
La revolución necesita de tu ayuda. Deposita, suscríbete, comparte los videos, apórtanos en el Patreon para que podamos seguir luchando por la libertad.